Once upon a time, in the village of Umunede, there lived a kind-hearted nurse named Nurse Amaka. Nurse Amaka was good to the villagers of Umunede. She was the eldest daughter of her elderly poor parents. And she had 6 siblings. Life was very tough for them, that they could hardly feed. They were poor farmers, but they had big dreams for Amaka. They scrimped and saved money to send her to school, hoping that when she goes to school, she would lift them out of poverty and in turn take care of her and her siblings. After graduating from nursing school, Nurse Amaka struggled to find a job in the city. Faced with mounting pressure to provide for her family, she then returned home and took a job at the village community hospital. Her salary was very little, that it couldn't even feed the whole family, but she worked tirelessly to support her loved ones. One fateful day, a wealthy woman named Mrs. Okonkwo drove all the way from the city to the village of Umunede. She had a problem and she drove straight to the village hospital. And when she saw Nurse Amaka, she felt Nurse Amaka would be the right person to speak with. Mrs. Okonkwo was a very rich young woman. She had everything money could buy, but she longed for a son to fulfill her husband's wishes. Desperate to keep her husband happy, she confided in Nurse Amaka about her secret. She told Nurse Amaka that she already had 4 daughters for her husband, but her husband kept on pressurizing her to give him a son. Although, when she was pregnant for her last daughter, she had a problem with her womb, and the doctor told her that she won't be able to get pregnant again, and her husband really wants a son. So, Mrs. Okonkwo made a shocking request of Nurse Amaka to find a pregnant woman with a son and sell the baby to her. In return, she promised Nurse Amaka a very large sum of money. Nurse Amaka refused, saying that it is against her belief and that she can't indulge in such a thing. The next day, Mrs. Okonkwo came back to the hospital. This time, she tripled the amount of money she had told Nurse Amaka the previous day. She told Nurse Amaka that this money would change her life and that of her family forever. Apparently, Mrs. Okonkwo already made findings about Nurse Amaka in the village and discovered that she actually came from a very poor home, and so she tripled the money just to convince Nurse Amaka to agree with her requests. Tempted by the promise of financial security for her family, Nurse Amaka reluctantly agreed. After fantasizing of how better their life would be if she received that much money from Mrs. Okonkwo. Soon, Nurse Amaka spotted a pregnant woman expecting twin boys in the village community hospital. Nurse Amaka discovered this woman was actually carrying twin boys after she had a scan carried out on her, and she was so close to the woman and started being extremely nice to her. She saw this woman as a ticket to fulfill Mrs. Okonkwo's wishes. She alerted Mrs. Okonkwo, who began faking her pregnancy to deceive her husband. This way, nobody will suspect that she wasn't pregnant. Neither will anybody suspect that she is not the owner of the child she was about to present to her husband as a son. On the day of the pregnant woman's delivery, Nurse Amaka made sure she was in charge of the delivery that day, and immediately the woman had her twin boys, Nurse Amaka took one of the baby and handed it to Mrs. Okonkwo, claiming that the other one had died. Meanwhile, Mrs. Okonkwo presented the baby boy to her husband, who was overjoyed. The family celebrated their newfound happiness, unaware of the dark secrets behind it. Despite her guilt, Nurse Amaka used the money to start living a lavish lifestyle. She provided for her family and everyone was now happy. But then, her parents asked her how come about the sudden wealth, and she told her parents that it was a good Samaritan who came to the hospital and just blessed her with the money. She was unable to reveal the truth to her parents, so she had to lie to her parents about the source of her newfound fortune. Meanwhile, in the Okonkwo household, the truth about their son's birth remained a closely guarded secret. Mrs. Okonkwo doted on her adopted son, showering him with love and affection. But deep down, she couldn't shake the guilt that gnawed at her conscience. Years flew by and the boy grew into a handsome young man who had all the luxury of life. Mrs. Okonkwo made sure that he had the comfort that he desired because she saw him as a way of keeping her in her marriage. The other twin with his biological parents also grew up into a handsome, gentle young man. Although his parents were not as luxuriously wealthy as Mrs. Okonkwo's family, but they made sure that their son had the best life they could afford. Nurse Amaka, on the other hand, continued enjoying her wealth. The wealth she had acquired from selling someone else's baby to Mrs. Okonkwo. She stopped being a nurse because she felt she had arrived with a lot of money and didn't need to work for anybody. As time went on, Amaka got married, not knowing that Nemesis is about to catch up with her. Years into the marriage, Amaka struggled to get pregnant. She tried different hospitals, but nothing was working. Her husband's family always threatened to chase her out of her husband's house if she doesn't provide a child. Amaka was confused because medically, she and her husband were fit to have children. Amaka confided in her father and confessed about how she had sold someone else's child to Mrs. Okonkwo, and her father advised her that she should look for Mrs. Okonkwo just so they can both confess and say the truth. Amaka's father believed that that was the only solution to her childlessness. Mrs. Okonkwo refused to submit to Amaka's request, stating that she cannot spill the truth to her husband. Amaka and her father resorted to looking for the young boy whom Mrs. Okonkwo had adopted. Amaka found the young man and hesitantly approached him and revealed the truth about his origin. Shocked and confused, he struggled to come to terms with the revelation Amaka has just told him. His world was turned upside down, and he requested to see his twin brother, and Nurse Amaka took him to his biological parents. He met his biological parents for the very first time, and they were so pleased, but though they were surprised. He also met his twin brother, and he was so excited to have an identical twin that looked just like him. Heartbroken and betrayed, the twins confronted Mrs. Okonkwo, demanding answers. Unable to bear the weight of her deception any longer, Mrs. Okonkwo confessed the truth about their births. She begged everyone for their forgiveness, knowing that she could never undo the pain she had caused. Despite their anger and hurt, the biological parents of the twin boys forgave Mrs. Okonkwo and Amaka. They realized that holding on to anger would only poison their hearts and prevent them from moving forward. Together, the twin boys embarked on a journey of self-discovery, determined to forge their own paths in life. They found solace in each other's company, drawing strength from the bond that had always united them. Amaka, on the other hand, finally became happy because she got pregnant and started having kids. Now she has peace of mind. Moral of the story: true family is built on love, honesty, and acceptance, not on secrets and not on deception. Forgiveness has the power to heal even the deepest wounds and allows us to move forward with grace and compassion. Secondly, being it a male or a female, all kids are equal. No man should ever pressurize his wife to provide either a female child or a male child. All kids are equal in the sight of our Creator. I hope from this story you learned the valuable lesson about the power of honesty and the importance of doing what is right, no matter the costs. Thank you so much for watching my videos, and please do not forget to leave a comment. Click on the subscribe button, it's totally free, and also like and share. See you in my next video. This is Onye Stories and Folktales. Bye bye.